Like many of you, I just recently finished watching the second season of... But the moment the last episode ended, I immediately went and caught up to the manga, because I was done. I was so over getting spoiled every 2 seconds everywhere I looked. And I took precautions too. I muted words on Twitter, I didn't follow any spoilery accounts on social media, I didn't watch any clips on YouTube or TikTok, I stayed off the subreddits, never clicked on any spoiler tags, but all that stuff wasn't enough. Let me tell you a story. It was a random Tuesday evening. I just finished up work, enjoyed a nice, healthy dinner, and sat down on the couch to just chill and watch my favorite anime. But just before that, I thought, hey, wouldn't it be great if I could share this experience with someone else? So I got on a dating app, swiped through a few people, and... What the fuck? Okay, first of all, I know, spoilers are not this new thing. They've been around and they've been a problem since like the dawn of time when the cavemen were walking around talking about how sick episode 9 of One Piece was. And I don't even consider myself to be all that sensitive to spoilers either. Like with older series, for example, I do think that there's some kind of statute of limitations, so you can more or less freely talk about them after a certain number of years with the assumption that everyone's already either seen it, or they don't care about it, or that it's culturally relevant enough that everyone at least already kind of knows about it. And not to mention, there's a lot of spoilers out there that I consider so obvious that even though yes, they're technically spoiling something, they're not really. Like if I tell you that the main couple in a romance anime is gonna get together eventually, it's like, yeah. Even if we count all those examples out, it definitely does seem like avoiding spoilers in recent years has gotten a lot tougher. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so culprit number 1 is something I think is pretty obvious. Social media discussions. I mean, you've heard it a million times now. Oh my god, social media is taking over the world, it's infecting our brains and causing a mental health crisis. Oh my god, oh no! Which is true, but we're just talking about anime spoilers here. I'm sure pretty much everyone's had that experience where they're just on some random, completely unrelated thread, and then boom, there's just a stray comment with a massive spoiler for no reason. It's happened to me a whole bunch of times. Like, I got a major character death from Jujutsu Kaisen spoiled for me on the Naruto subreddit because some little shit was just openly talking about it. Tons of people get spoiled all the time from YouTube comments, TikTok comments, your grandma's Facebook posts, whatever. And obviously because we have the blessing and the monstrosity that is meme culture being so incredibly prevalent and ingrained into all of our minds, you're gonna see tons and tons of casual spoilers just tossed around on social media because they're just part of memes. It's pretty inevitable because memes by nature capitalize on recent events, which in anime and manga circles very much includes the latest chapters and episodes of whatever's popular right now. Hence, everyone getting spoiled by Jujutsu Kaisen memes, infecting the world everywhere because people can't help themselves, and everyone just ends up flooding social media with screenshots and clips of the episode that just aired like 2 milliseconds ago for everyone to see. There are specific places for these things, communities for these fan bases, but a side effect of popularity is that they tend to leak out of those places. I have to admit, it is kind of funny seeing the lobotomy Kaisen posts infect the entire internet everywhere, but there are also definitely thousands of spoiler casualties occurring every single day because of this. I'm a bit conflicted on this because this means tons of people are just unable to go into the series blind, and a lot of the surprises and big moments might be already ruined for them. Like, they might not be able to take things seriously because they're so used to just... But on the other hand, without exposure to these memes, a lot of people might not even ever have found out about the series or been willing to give it a chance to begin with. It's definitely not all bad, but generally speaking, I do feel like we're kind of building towards this culture where nobody gives a shit about ruining a story for other people, and we're only really thinking about, oh, I want to share the funny thing. Not to mention, people love to think they're being clever by talking about a spoiler without actually talking about a spoiler. They'll make some sly comment like,
he was introduced in the third episode.
Well, no spoilers, but let's say don't get too attached.
Okay, so he dies then?
We have features for spoiler tagging shit too. Like on Reddit, just do this. On Twitter, you can throw a content warning on your tweet, at least for now. Or just for any generic comment, you can just do this type of thing to properly spoiler mark it. We can easily do this stuff. People just don't. I also want to mention that, of course, it's not just social media discussions, it's also discussions, like IRL discussions with friends. It's really common. Like, if you're not all aligned on how far everyone's caught up to a series, then spoilers can just kind of slip out in conversation. And it's not to blame anyone either. I get it. I've done it by accident too. People get really passionate and enthusiastic about their favorite series, and it's really hard to control yourself when you're feeling like that and you want to share your excitement with everyone. Some of you may have seen this, but I also asked you guys in a community post to share some of the dumbest ways you've been spoiled on something, which I've been including in this video. So thanks to everyone who participated in that. But in a twist of irony, even this exercise became a shining example of how easy it can be to run into random spoilers online. Because, and not to call out my own community here, but even this thread started getting unmarked spoilers in the replies. Probably should have seen that one coming in retrospect. Also, shoutouts to this person who just wrote a post where they tried to predict the ending of Demon Slayer, accidentally got it right, and then had their post removed by a mod, which then spoiled them. I just thought that was hilarious, and I just wanted to mention that. All right, next up, we've got recommended content. Basically, this also means social media, but instead of comments and forum discussions, it's the content itself. So that means YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn. And the reason I call it recommended content is because that's kind of what all these platforms became almost entirely. Recommendation systems that have given the user less and less variety and choice over the years as to what kinds of content they can easily access, which for us basically means that you can get spoiled against your will more easily now. Another quick story. Let me take you back to a certain day. A very, very important day. March 18th, 2023. A super important day in history. It will be remembered for many, many decades to come. It's the day that episode 23 of Blue Lock came out. Just for some context, there was a giant cliffhanger from the ending of episode 22. Each day I would wake up and immediately shit my pants at the thought of having to wait longer for the cliffhanger to be resolved. But then, the day finally arrives at 2 p.m. The episode gets released on Crunchyroll. I plan on watching it that very night, sometime around 7 p.m. And then, at 6 p.m., this video pops up on my YouTube feed. The Crunchyroll Clips channel ruined their own show for me literally a couple hours after the episode aired. I have no idea how I was supposed to expect that. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but this is just one of many, many stories I'm sure that go pretty much exactly this way or very similarly. There has been an uptick in YouTube titles and thumbnails having an increasingly high spoiler tolerance. And this is not at all to call out anyone in particular, because I don't think any of these people really mean any harm. Like, it's not that serious, it's just anime spoilers. But here, take a look at this video I got on my recommended. It may seem totally fine at first, but if you're someone who was watching Vinland Saga Season 2 at the time of this video coming out, seeing this thumbnail would probably spoil the shit out of you on this particular plot point, which some people might not really care about, but others might really care about. I see this problem with titles and thumbnails a lot, especially in two types of videos, which are anime clips and episode or chapter reviews. The reasoning is obvious. You want to describe what's actually in the clip or episode so people know what they're going to be watching. Kind of tough to get around that, and I don't really want to advocate for not posting these videos at all, but I do think that we could maybe do a better job with toning down the spoilers just a bit. Also, just because you wrote the word spoiler in the title doesn't mean you're just magically fine. Like, it's not like people see the word spoiler and then suddenly become blind and they can't see the thumbnail anymore. Like, come on, you could do a little better than that. A little bit. Sometimes spoilers also show up as a consequence of design. If you're scrolling on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or these platforms don't really let you choose what you see, and that's the whole point. So it's not like you can identify a spoiler from far away and stop yourself from clicking on the video. It's just already in your face, and it's completely up to you to just do a quick time event and scroll away before the spoiler infects your brain. For most of these content platforms, there is an option to manually mark certain types of videos to have them not get recommended. But this option doesn't always work perfectly, and often by the time you get to do that, it's already too late and you've already been told that kills in the last episode of. One idea, and I really doubt that YouTube or any other platform would actually ever implement something like this, would be something like the ability to self-mark for spoilers. So if you're watching Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, you could maybe set like a period of time for which you expect to be watching it. And for just that period of time, any Jujutsu Kaisen related content will completely stop getting recommended to you. Or maybe they still show up, but the titles and thumbnails have spoiler markings or something like that. Just a random, unrefined idea from me. Maybe it sucks, but it'd be cool to at least see something in this direction happen. But unfortunately, the reality is that there isn't really much of a downside for any creators or companies who post content online to pay attention to spoiler hiding. At least speaking in terms of revenue, there isn't really much of a chance that we'll be seeing any kind of change here. Or is there? Let's interrupt this part of the video for a brief section on a very important question. Do spoilers actually matter? Not as much from a personal perspective, because obviously they matter to me, they matter to probably most of you, but more from a revenue perspective. If we're going to try and encourage revenue-driven corporations to adopt anti-spoiler practices, we kind of need to be able to prove that spoilers have some kind of negative effect on profit margins, which is a difficult thing to prove because this kind of thing is really tough to measure accurately. So I don't really think we'll be able to get any kind of metric out of it as definitive proof that, hey, spoilers actually hurt your bottom line and you'll lose a lot of money. But I was curious, so I took a look at some of the research and I found these papers that go into the topic. This first study is from the Journal of Marketing and it points out something kind of weird actually. They took a look at movie reviews from IMDb that contain spoilers in relation to those movies' box office revenue. And they actually found that spoiler reviews have a positive and statistically significant relationship with revenue, which means more spoilers equals more money, which is kind of concerning, but also it would explain a lot, like why it seems like trailers and advertising now seem to have way more spoilers compared to before. And this effect only grew stronger for movies with less advertising and mixed reviews. The researchers speculated that the reason for this is because of what they call uncertainty reduction. So basically we're talking about people who aren't sure if they want to go see a movie or not, especially if that movie is a bit more unknown, got less advertising, and has mixed reviews. For them, getting definitive information, aka spoilers, about what happens in the movie can help them make that decision and get off the fence and maybe go buy tickets. There's a lot more information to go through as well, so if you're interested in more, I'll link all the research material in the description. The good news is that this effect isn't really present to the same extent when it comes to really popular movies with a lot of advertising, which I'd say definitely includes a lot of popular anime. Though it's also important to note that these studies are for movies that aired in theaters that each person specifically has to go buy a ticket to see. It's a really different landscape when it comes to TV shows, especially the ones on streaming services. So definitely take this with a grain of salt, but I just thought it'd be interesting to share. I found this kind of funny, but there is a second study that basically took a look at the results from that first study and pretty much went, nah. So this group also looked at movie reviews, except this time they used reviews from a Chinese platform rather than IMDb. And they found the opposite. The presence of spoilers had a negative effect on box office revenue. So when it comes to our question of how spoilers affect sales, we have two studies that tell us opposing stories. So I still don't know. So my message to anime producing companies: spoilers matter. Kinda. Maybe. So like, do something about it. Please? Coming back to the categories, I also want to talk about search. So just a quick little PSA, okay? If you care about spoilers, don't search character names. Don't search the character. Don't search the voice actor. Actually, just don't search anything. Just don't search. Especially stay off the wikis because it's just landmines everywhere there. Just watch the show and then search after. That even applies for characters who've already died, by the way, because you don't know what's gonna happen. You might be looking up their voice actor or something and then you accidentally see a section that says resurrection and then second death and then tax fraud allegations or something, I don't know. You never know, so it's just best to stay safe and stay away, okay? Okay, so at this point we have a nice set of guidelines to follow when you're online. For the most part, you should be well versed enough in the online space to be able to follow these common sense rules and avoid spoilers as much as possible. Not always, but most of the time. Because sometimes you just get spoiled in such a dumb way that you could not have done anything about it. Which leads us to our last category, and it's probably the most interesting category here. And I call it in the wild. In the wild basically means you're doing something far, far removed from anime. You're outside, you're touching grass, you're in some place doing an activity where you would never, ever really expect to get a random spoiler thrown at you. But it happens anyway. Part of it is inevitable because anime has gotten a lot more popular lately. So you might hear people in your college class in front of you, or on the bus, or just randomly on the street, talking about last night's episode of My Life as Inukai-san's Dog. And before you can even do anything, it's already too late and you're like, oh my god, I got spoiled on My Life as Inukai-san's Dog! Oh no! Some of the biggest offenders here, literally speaking, are buildings. Like, imagine just walking outside, looking up, and there's just a fucking spoiler on a building! I haven't been there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like if you go visit certain popular destinations like Shibuya or Akihabara in Tokyo or even Times Square, there's a pretty decent chance that you'll just see some giganto spoilers on the billboards. And there's just so many examples of super spoilery things just being laid out there for everyone to see in public. I'm talking about Jujutsu Kaisen again, but there's just one character, I obviously won't say who, who meets their very tragic end in the show. And fans in Malaysia got together to build them a memorial shrine, which you could even find on Google Maps for a time. There's also other stuff like Malaysia Airlines posting about that episode as promotional material on Facebook, which I love all this, by the way. I think it's super awesome. But it is really funny to think that there's probably a couple of unfortunate souls who got spoiled because they went to the beach that day. There's a couple other weird ones I've been collecting too. Like, I got a response from someone who got spoiled by a body pillow on Amazon. There's my own story about getting spoiled from someone's dating app profile. Very cool. I got a couple people saying that they got spoiled by the news. Like, they just opened Google on their phone and then on the news feed there was just, again, Jujutsu Kaisen spoilers. And one last little bonus section. It's technically not really in the wild, but it does kind of fit because this is just something you're not really supposed to expect. And this is spoilers that are built into the anime and the anime watching experience itself. The most well-known example of this is probably anime openings and endings that just flat out spoil their own show. Like, for some reason, that's really common to see. There's also series that don't have a definitive watch order, like the Fate series. No matter what order you choose between Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, you will always get spoiled. Fate Zero will spoil Unlimited Blade Works, and Unlimited Blade Works will spoil Fate Zero. Either way, you're getting spoiled, so it's just up to you to choose how you get spoiled. By the way, the right answer is Fate Zero first. Okay, last example, but shoutouts to this person who got spoiled because the website they were watching on listed the last episode as the first episode. Good stuff. Okay, just kidding, that wasn't the last example. Because after I finished writing the fucking script, guess who came to play? That's right, Bruno Mars, posting this on his Instagram page. A picture of him reading the latest volume of Jujutsu Kaisen with a massive, massive spoiler right on the front cover. Very cool. Please save us. Okay, so we've gone through a million examples of how people get spoiled, and we've touched upon this a little bit, but I want to ask this question again. What can we do about all of this? Of course, the best way to avoid this problem is to just simply become immune to spoilers. Just watch everything the exact millisecond it comes out. Easy. But if you're not clinically insane, there's the usual things that I already mentioned. Don't go on the subreddit, don't look it up on YouTube or TikTok, or don't follow accounts that post spoilers all the time, mute keywords from the series, don't Google anything about it, and don't go on Twitter. Not even for spoilers, just don't go on Twitter, it's not worth it. Okay, so here's the definitive guide. Ready? Stay off social media, go outside, enjoy the full experiences that life has to offer, and then get spoiled by a fucking billboard, so there's no point. I'm just kidding, none of us are going to make it past step 1 anyway. There's a couple other things that come to mind, like what Marvel did when Avengers Endgame came out, where the Russo brothers literally came out and asked fans to not talk about it for a couple of weeks. So we had this sort of official spoiler-free grace period. I don't really know if it worked super well, but maybe something like this could work for really big anime projects too. Another thing I tried is browser extensions for spoiler blocking. This is a Chrome extension that I found called Spoiler Protection 2.0, and it's pretty simple. You can put in any keywords you want, and if it detects any of them on any sites that you go on, you'll get the whole thing blocked out for you. You just need to make sure that you've covered all the keywords you need. Like, you can't just type in Jujutsu Kaisen and expect it to work. You gotta be more thorough and actually write things in, like all the character names, maybe the episode number, anything else that might be relevant. I wasn't sponsored or paid to talk about this, but it does seem pretty good, though I can't really make any guarantees about its overall reliability and security, so that's just my disclaimer. At the end of the day, I am aware that the idea that we could reliably stop everyone or even most people from spoiling things is frankly insane. It's like wiping a marker, that shit's never gonna end. In the meantime, if you care about spoilers, please do your best to stay safe from them. Let's all hope together that the landscape for anime spoilers in the future looks better. And don't use dating apps, they suck.